Well, my dears, here we go again. This is your old friend BHAGWAN Sri Ramakrishna Siva, Buddha sent to save the world, just so we get that clear. And I'm going to talk to you today, pardon me, sinuses, about something that is so important and so maligned that many of you have never gotten a straight answer that might actually help you become enriched. And that has to do with sex. Sex. God, everybody likes sex and other people don't, and some hate it and some are abhorred by it. Some think it's the devil's work. My goodness. One of the things you can count on, that as you move to structure, and when I say structure, I say religions. I'm not going to mention religions. Let's just go on the premise that depending what faith you have, it'll either be close to being a reasonable deal in handling this, or so screwed up that if you have any sexual thoughts, you're an evil sinner and the devil's going to get you and you're going to go to hell and rot for all eternity. Because where you come from, your God's an avenging God and a vicious God and a God who makes people burn in hell forever for a transgression. And all that is nonsense. God's not here to put you in hell, guys. He's here to show you heaven. And this is the 21st century. Things are different. All your masters, here, I'll talk to you about your masters real fast before we get to this. If you belong to a religion, your master lived a long time ago, because it takes time to build a religion. You know, first the guy is there, then it's a cult, and if they don't kill them out, they kind of form and they spread around, and eventually if they get enough of them, there's a religion that forms. So you have to go on a premise that wherever your master came from, that was a long time ago. And the reason that these guys teach basically the same stuff is because everything was the same a long time ago. Nothing was changing. You could go centuries and not have a significant change in the people's perception of what the world was or is. So if you live now, I'm in 2019, I don't know where you're at, but in 2019, knowledge ad infinitum, all the knowledge in the world is doubling at an unbelievable rate. One of these days I'm going to look it up on Google, and it's something like once every, it's years or months, or maybe it's days, because you got supercomputers knocking stuff out, and they want you to, that's what I want to say. The supercomputers are, because of their power, are doubling available knowledge. The fact that most people don't have any use for it, that's immaterial, but the knowledge is there. So, regardless of when your master lived, he was in a time that by our standards today was pretty archaic, pretty simple, pretty basic. That's why all of them have value to you, because they weren't talking about how to live in a dynamic, violent, creative world like we live in today. They lived in a world where everything was pretty much the same. Farmers were the same, just like those guys haven't changed. They're still farming. Better equipment, higher productivity, although some of the Oriental people get so much rice out of an acre, it's unbelievable. Of course, they hand tend it and all the rest of the stuff. But here in the United States, outside of small farms that little families run, agriculture's big business. You know, huge operations, huge technology backing them up. You have to go on the premise that everything you take for granted, your master had no idea about. If you showed him a television, he'd freak out, probably call it the devil's work, and sick the killers on you. They were always killing people doing the devil's work. A lot of killing going down, still going on. But back then it was worse, because A, you were starving, B, life sucked, and C, you got various guys running around killing you because you don't believe the stuff they think you should believe. We are, hopefully, moving away from that. There are still pockets of it, but even those guys know their time is numbered. Because all you got to do is look around, you know. What I look at is the smiles on the faces of the people in the places where smiles are available. So if you see a piece of news footage and you go to most places in the world, you take a picture of the people and a lot of people smiling. Some of them just grinning all over themselves. Here in the United States, you see that all the time. And yet you see video footage from other parts of the world and you can't find a smile to save your ass. Even the kids are having a hard time smiling, which is testament to how bad the quality of life is there. If life is good, you're smiling, you're enjoying, you're basking, you're thanking God for giving you that life. Well, in the old days, in order to control your ass, and it was real important that they control you, didn't want any free thinking. They have killed more free thinkers, and they is the collective powers that be that think that they know what's good for you. And they're always just busting your chops about one thing or another. You know, parents are on kids, the system is on the parents, the politicians are on the system. You know, it's kind of one of those things where everybody's trying to tell you what to do. And I'm saying to you that you need to open up a little bit and expand. And one of the areas that's the most maligned is sex. I'm a Tantric mystic master. Tantra, in my world, is realization by doing. You're not sitting around meditating, not that there's anything wrong with meditation. You're not being a yogi, so you're burning your body, and yet everything is a relationship between you and the physical world, while your mind is quiet and searching for God. But Tantric guys are doing stuff, all the time doing stuff, trying to figure out how to make it better. And one of the gifts that you've been given is your sexuality. The collectives, have kind of been putting that stuff down. Matter of fact, in some faiths, if you're not married, you ain't getting no sex, at least not with the sanctioning of the church. So there are places where men and women have never had intercourse. I find it hard to believe, but I know it's true. So, and you do too. There are people who've had so much negative stuff jammed into their consciousness about sexuality that they don't have any. And you guys are all just frustrated out the ass, or most of it. Some of you have figured out a way to live with it. You know, we're resourceful people. If you're stuck in a box, you'll eventually learn how to live in a box. And that's what, in my opinion, most of you do. I'm going to share this with you because if we do it right, this is going to create a bit of a sensation. Create an orgasm, touch God. Orgasm is the single vehicle that God gave you that allows you to touch Him on command. Nothing else works. Prayer doesn't work, meditation doesn't work. Well, I suppose if you're martyred, that works. Martyrdom gets you there. But that's not a lot of fun. Last I checked, most martyrs didn't have a good outcome. And it was really hard on anybody that they loved and anybody who they were supposed to be taking care of because they were dead. Let's go martyr some people. And a lot of them got martyred because they were sexually active people. So be with this thought. Create an orgasm, touch God. Well, there's a lot of ways to create an orgasm. The easiest and the simplest is masturbation. Man, you can do that anytime you want. You step over in a corner, every now and then you'll see some whacked out guy doing it on a corner. I drove by a mental institution one time, and there's a guy standing by the fence, and he's got himself exposed, and he's just having a good time. Big shit-eating grin on his face, and he's watching traffic go by. Scared my sister-in-law to death. I thought it was funnier now. I guess it's how you look at life, huh? I'm trying to be conscious of these 15-minute things now, guys. I'm kind of watching the clock. So, if sexuality gives you a window to God, and I promise you that it does, then that might not be a bad idea if you knew a lot about sexuality, and most of you don't know shit. Get on, get off, maybe a little oral play, I remember my dad trying to explain sex to me. He did the best job of anybody, but it was still pretty far from allowing me to think that this was the most wonderful thing in the world, which it is. It's the single most beautiful thing that you can do on command that will cause God to come in your life. The more intimate it is, in other words, if you've got a lover, that's an important thing, because it adds energy to the equation that obviously you don't get when you masturbate. And if you had more than one lover, and this is what happens in today with single people, they very often have multiple lovers. You know, they date 3, 4, 5 people, and maybe they're intimate with a couple, 3 of them. And then there's the bunch that are intimate with everybody given the opportunity, very small piece of the population. But the interesting thing about a lot of those people, not the neurotic crazy ones, because they're part of that group, and that's fine. But some people who found that window have such a deep center, they've got a smile on their face all the time. Most of you knew somebody at one time who, usually in your youth, that was getting laid all the time, and when nobody else was. And that man or woman just had this look on their face. You could tell that love had embraced them and comforted them. And a lot of you just don't allow that stuff into your life. So I'm going to say to you, if you're not sexually active, and this includes masturbation, if you're not sexually active, give it some thought. Because all medical science says one of the single best things you can do for your being is to make love. And if you take that down to a baser level, create an orgasm is actually what it's about. Because that's when God comes, even if it's a little squirt. Some of you guys have such pee-pee shit orgasms that you wouldn't even know it if you walked by. Done. And then others have monster orgasms. It'll last a half an hour, your toes curl. Those guys walk around with a smile on their face.